Hello, Tarot Tube. Well, this one's going to be sort of a serious video, but hang in because I'm going to be talking about the importance of ancestral work and where we are in the world today and where I've been the last few weeks. So, where have I been? My mother passed away and it really hit me quite hard, and I just didn't feel like participating very much in the online community, so I just kind of dropped out. But I'm back today, at least for a little while, just to talk about ancestral work. Happily for me, I began ancestral work a few years ago. Benebell has got some stuff on her website. You can look at her website if you like, about generational work, which I think is really important. And then I've learned a lot from Nancy Hendrickson, from Carrie Parrish. So I'm just going to sort of flip through some of these decks and talk about this a little bit while I sort of ruminate on world events. So let's see, is this the first? I guess this is the first deck I've used, and this is it's this deck, the Relative Tarot. So I use this deck a lot with my ancestral work. It has this system you're going to see down here, which is explained in the guidebook. I'm not going to try to explain it to you now. Looks like I highlighted stuff. I forgot about that. Yeah, so this is all explained, but I really liked these images. I don't know, they resonated with who my personal ancestors are, what they might have looked like. I mean, there's some stuff in here that's a little silly, I guess, but it's, like I said, it resonated for me and it allowed me to explore some things. I also did some work with Colette Baron Reed about this, and so I felt any of her decks I feel like I could use, but particularly Wisdom of the Oracle or the Enchanted Map I found helpful with this kind of work. So in looking back at my family tree, and I did a lot of work with my mother before she passed, because she was very interested in this too. Not necessarily the tarot and the, working with this stuff, but she became more and more interested as she aged in who her family members were, wanting to find people that she wasn't sure where they were, stuff like that. And so as I did that with her, I also looked at my father, who has been gone for a few years, looked at his tree as well. And what I discovered in that search was that both sides of the family, and this is going to be true of anybody who lives in the U.S., because you're either the descendant of immigrants or you're the descendant of indigenous people who were forcibly displaced. All of those things are traumatic. They're traumatic events. Oh, this deck, now I'm going to sort of flip through another deck. This is the Ofrenda Oracle. So I grew up in Texas, so all of this kind of imagery resonates with me on a cultural level. I just saw this. So as I flip through it, you're going to see it's the Oracle, but it's also got a lot of Lenormand in it. So back to my story, which is that if you live in the U.S., then you have got trauma in your background because of the immigration or because of the displacement of your ancestors. I don't think that there's any way to be an immigrant or a descendant of an immigrant that doesn't involve some level of trauma and grief, serious grief. The separation, willingly or unwillingly, from your family of origin has got to be difficult. Even if you want to go, suddenly you don't have that extended family anymore, because I found no examples in my family tree, and I would guess most family trees are like this. They don't all go. Not everybody goes. Not this whole multi-generational, great big family that's been living in a certain geographical area for a certain period of time, that has grandparents and cousins and nieces and nephews and great-grandchildren, all that sort of thing. That gets torn apart. There's just no way around it. That gets torn apart. And your connection to the land is disrupted. So even if you have been living wherever you're living for a long period of time, even generations, at some point in the past, there was a big disruption in your family line and in the family lines of all the people that are around you. And I think it's worth taking the time to work through that for yourself, for your descendants, as well as for your ancestor. I mean, you're working through generational trauma. And that's something, like I said, if you're in the US, it's in your background, whether you think about it or not. And it could be pretty far back there, could be quite recent. But it's there. And now I'm going to flip through a new deck that I haven't actually used yet, because I got it when my mom was in hospice, and I really couldn't work with it. It was just too much. Let's see, I think I'm going to leave it down, and whoops, wrong way. Get bigger, biggie size it. Like I said, I just couldn't work with it. It was too much. So let's just like a look at these. So this is new to me too, really, to look at these pictures. But I'm optimistic that this is going to be a good deck to work with. So it's got keywords. Actually, I'm a little too close now. How can I do this? One of these days I have to start editing. There we go. Where was I? Let me get back to my... Yes, I think this is going to be a good deck. Interesting with the wings on the people. I wonder if she does that for everybody. Now, this one I think is a little... it's more diverse than her first deck. You know, this came first, the Relative Tarot, which is pretty white, but, you know, some diversity. This seems to have more diversity, and it's interesting that everybody's got wings here. So whatever you think about the afterlife, there's a symbol for you. So getting back to my original point, which is I think it's hard, it's painful. You're going to find out things that you didn't know, some of which are going to really sort of hurt. Not sort of hurt, they're going to hurt. You know, I discovered that there was domestic abuse in my background, but my great-grandmother, she kicked that bum out, and I've got a newspaper article to talk about it. You know, got rid of him at a time when that was not really the done thing always. And oh, what a great card. And so I was able to look at that and think about the people who were descendants of hers, and think about how that may have played out for them in their lives, whether they knew about the domestic abuse and the breakup of that family, or whether it had been covered up, like my mom did not know. Even though she met this woman as a young child and certainly knew her grandmother, who had been a child in that household. So that's, you know, that's a bit of personal revelation, but it's just to say that I can look at that and I can say, in my direct family line, I can find abuse and I can find great strength, and know that what happened affected that person. It affected that family, the nuclear family. It affected my great-great-grandmother. It affected my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, knowingly or unknowingly. That is knowledge and wisdom and an experience that just got passed down one way or the other, either knowingly or unknowingly. It's once you go through something like that, it changes who you are, it changes how you behave, it changes how you relate to other people. And so I think it's worth looking at it and honoring it. And you know, the truth of the matter is I'm also related to the man that, oh, that's Nijinsky. Okay. The truth of the matter is I'm related to the man who did the abusing, as well as the woman who didn't take it, you know. So I know that that's in me. Those are possible human behaviors and the aftermath of those behaviors. So I'm talking a lot about one specific instance. Okay, that's a little creepy to me. Dolls. Oh, wow. That is a powerful card. That is a really powerful card. So, yeah, that speaks of it too. And the reason that I'm back now talking about this and showing you some of these cards, boy, what a deck this is that, you know, the world's on fire. So I'm making this, what is today? This is October 14th, 2023. It's a Saturday. It is a week after the horrific Hamas attacks in Israel and Israel's violent response. And in trying to understand what's happening there, or the Ukraine, or here in the United States, starting to tear up, y'all. I realize that on both sides, there has been, well, let's specifically talk about Palestine and Israel now. On both sides, there has been unbelievable, inconceivable generational trauma, multi-generations of trauma. And when I think about those people on both sides, I have an enormous amount of compassion and empathy for them. I'm not really interested in who's right or who's wrong. It's just such a horrific tragedy. Oh, that's List. And I can't help but think that if everyone would just do the hard work and really look at what has happened in our families and in other people's families, maybe the world would be different. So I guess what I want to say here is, I'm going to leave it here. What I want to say is, everybody, grab your decks. Do the hard work. Look at what's happening in your family, in your life, multi-generational. And make the changes that you can make. Help your children, help the next generation. There's a lot of decks that you could use for this that are specifically designed for this kind of work. But then really just any deck that you have can work. I apologize for pulling out a out of print deck, but I do find that if you find something that has older images, even if it wasn't designed for ancestral work, it can be really helpful. So like, I find this one useful. It's art basically, but it tends to be, you know, old art from the past. So anything like this that's going to pull you out of the present day, help you to look at the past, and to do your best to see what's happening and not pass on, don't pass the shit on to the next generation, y'all. Okay, that's it. I want to say to everybody, be well, do your best. I'm sure you are. And no matter how stinky life is, there's something out there, even if you're looking at it through your tears, that's beautiful. And I just encourage you to go do that. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care of yourself.